insurance doesn't cover fraud. So I hope you have a savings account for if you get sued. Yeah, which you probably don't because you're trying to run.
Well,
I know, and it sucks because there are industries, like the restaurant industry seems to be one of those, and the construction industry seems to be one of those where they tell you that they don't make profit unless they cut corners. And when they say cut corners, you're like, some of this is committing fraud.
right.
But it's awful. But yeah, if you can't do it legally, I agree with you. You're going to have to get into a different industry.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Tax Prep Network podcast. I'm Eric Green. Joining us again is Maya, who, by the way, is my accountant, my bookkeeper from Solvency Now. And so Maya, it's 1099 season.
It is 1099 season. As a bookkeeper, it's January. I've got 1099s on the brain.
Yep. This comes up a lot during audits. It comes up in criminal investigations. It's another flag for the government. People who just fail to file, or non-filers that come in now. I'm working with I have a number of cases where Don Brolin's the forensic accountant, and we're now dealing with, they paid cash or check, never reported it, 1099s. What do we do? So if you don't mind, what are people supposed to do? Forget about the non-filers and all that. What is the actual rule with this?
Yeah. So basically, and this people ask me this question a lot because when business owners think of contractors, they just think if they hire someone who, is specifically called a contractor, and they might not think about all the people who fall under that category. But anybody that you paid $600 or more who is not on your payroll and is also not a corporation would need to get a 1099. There's more rules, right? Like if you paid them by credit card or certain third-party processors, then you don't have to send a 1099 because those third-party processors will send it. But generally, you need to keep track of anybody that you paid, and people that people aren't thinking of if they have an office, their landscaper for their office, their marketing consultant, the guy that they pay to wash the windows. They're not thinking about all these things, but if you pay them from your business, you have to give them a 1099. And on top of that, any law firm that you pay, even if they are a corporation, which a lot of them are, and any medical that you pay for your company, like if you have a general contractor and you pay for any of your subcontractors or employees to go to a doctor or chiropractor, which we've seen, you need to 1099 them. If you are a lawyer, law firm, and you are paying for medical experts for your cases, you have to 1099 them, even if it's like a hospital or whatever, regardless of the fact that they're a corporation, they still need a 1099.
Right. And that's the thing. Most people think, I paid, they're an LLC, not a corporation. It's really only C Corps that are exempt
Yeah.
unless you're paying by credit card.
Well,
Uh,
if they're an LLC taxed as an S corporation, they're also exempt, but you have to get a W-9 to know that. And a lot of people, they don't get the W-9. Like we always tell people, before you pay someone, get a W-9. Just make it a habit. Like, oh, you want a check here, or you want an ACH? Give me a W-9. And then you know exactly whether you're supposed to send them a 1099 or not.
right. And in fact, like I use Melio on one and Bill.com on the other, on each company. So I get to use both. When I go to pay someone, it'll say, do you want to get a W-9 from this person? It will
Brilliant.
automatically send the request. The people don't always respond, but it will send the request. Where this comes up, and I think so by the way, one last thing, the filing deadline to get the 1099s to the government is it February 1st?
January 31st.
January 31st.
Unless that happens to fall on a weekend, which I didn't look at this year, but let's see. It shouldn't. Christmas wasn't.
But the bottom
Oh
line
no, January 31st is a Saturday. So
would be
maybe,
February 2nd then.
yeah.
But the rule is January 31st. Otherwise, it would roll over to the next business day, which in this case will be February 2nd this year, 2026.
And a lot of these, like you're e-filing most of these, and some of the softwares have a cutoff date. So you have to be careful. They don't always let you file up until the last minute.
Good to know. The What comes up, at least for me, is what happens if you don't? What are the downsides of that? And there's actually two.
Yeah.
There's a fine, I believe, if you don't file it,
Mhm.
and then you potentially have backup withholding that you're on the
Yeah.
hook for.
Exactly. So the penalty is anywhere from $60 to $630 per 1099 you didn't file, depending on how long you took. If it was, about 30 days, it could be $60. If you intentionally just were like, oh, I'm not going to file it, which we've heard clients say, that could be $630 plus. Now, for small businesses, they'll put a cap on it if you like, for instance, if it says here, maximum annual penalty, 220,500 for the about 30 days late ones, right? And a lot of small businesses tell me, like, they've never heard the government, and it's true, for if you've only got a few employees, you might never hear the government complain. But I know for sure, because I had a conversation with a guy from Tax 1099, and he told me the bigger small businesses, they are getting hit with hundreds of thousands in penalties for not filing. So you definitely don't want to be the red flag that IRS notices and comes after you for that, just for not filing a 1099.
Right. And where this comes up is there's an audit. They didn't file 1099s. They've had these people kind of working off the books, if you will, for
Mhm.
years. So you have the penalty. So of course the owner said, "Well, I'll file the 1099s now," and that's fine. And you'll get the fine. Maybe it's 200, 500, 600, whatever it is, per 1099 per year.
Mhm.
But then the auditor will say, "Well, there's a 24% backup withholding. You paid these people 100,000 over the last 3 years. Here's your bill for 24,000." Now,
Yeah.
if you can prove the taxpayer who you paid, the subcontractor that you paid, filed and paid their through theirs, I've seen the auditors drop it, but good
Yeah.
luck with that. Because
Yeah.
often people that get paid off the books don't want to report it. That's the whole
Right.
point.
That's why they asked you not to send them a 1099, or that's why when you asked for a W-9, they didn't give you one. And also, how many times have we heard, "Oh, yeah, we used to work together, but we had a falling out, so they don't talk to me anymore, so I won't can't get a W-9." So, that's why you should get one before you pay them, because otherwise, and also, I've gotten W-9s with no tax IDs on them.
Well,
And
this
in that case, you have to, as the business owner, withhold 24% and put it aside to pay it to the government and not spend it on accident, on
right,
accident.
right, no. And that's the rule. Let's say you have somebody who won't give it to you and they're already on the job site. Trust me, when you start withholding 24%, just so you know, the average American, by the way, this is why I like a sales tax, a national sales tax won't work. The average American pays about 10% in federal income
Really?
tax. Well, think about it. You have a whole lot of people in that bracket, plus they have standard deduction, plus earned income tax credit, all the rest. There are a lot of Americans that pay not only pay nothing, but get money. The EITC is a form of social service that we're running through the code. And the very top 1/10 of 1%, or the top, I think it's actually the top 1%, pays about 23, 24% on average. And again, why? Because they have capital gains, they have things that are exempt, municipals, whatever. And a lot of their income isn't income. They take loans against assets,
Right.
shares and whatnot, so they never actually have realized income.
Yeah. And I know I could go on a whole nother tangent because I've had so many conversations with people who are all about the national sales tax and getting rid of income tax, and how often you see billionaires, beat up online because they don't pay any taxes. And I'm like, they're still paying taxes. Don't you worry.
Right. But the other thing, to cover our national budget, we would need a national sales tax of 28%. So if you think about it, the Americans that spend every dime, they need every dime to live, would literally watch on average, the tax burden almost triple.
Yeah. That
And
would, nobody would vote for that.
well, it would destroy the economy. People would lose their homes. And remember, you have no deduction now for mortgage interest, real estate tax. That's the point of a sales tax.
Because you would just be paying 28% on every single thing you buy.
And the states aren't getting rid of theirs. So you have the state that's still there. So in Connecticut, you're talking that I'd be paying 35% between federal and state national, sales tax.
In California, you'd be paying, like, over 40%.
Right. Yeah. So it's why it won't work. But the point is, the government wants to know who's getting paid what. Hence why the 1099s. It is purely so they know where money is moving. But the downside to that is very real. So when we have non-filers who have done this, it's a real issue. Do we take the deduction, file a 1099s, and hope this doesn't become an issue? If they can even do the 1099s because of the ID number. If
Yeah.
you can't, we generally don't take the deduction, which
Wow. So
means
you just make
the
it as
owners,
an owner's distribution or shareholder distribution?
because
Or
yeah, the downside would be we claim it, we didn't file 1099s. Backup withholding is every bit as bad, if not worse, than their own income tax burden.
Mhm.
And so net, to avoid criminal and avoid all of that, they generally those are the two choices. Do you claim it?
Yeah.
Now, some people I have said, you have some leverage. They have the same people that work for them all the time. Go back to them and say, look, I got to do this. All right. Did you report your income? If not, I need 1099 or you have to let them go. But it's a real issue.
Yeah.
It's the same though with people that come to me that didn't keep their books. They now they got a notice. I have someone now. They got a notice, and of course the accountant says, "What do we do? They didn't keep good records." I'm like, "Well, then they're not getting their deductions. That's the price for not keeping good records." There's
Yeah.
there's some things you can try to argue for. You have the Cohan rule that if it's an expense they must have incurred, you can use an estimate. Now, the government doesn't have to accept it. They can come up with a different number, but the price for not having Maya and her team do your listen, we spend a lot of money. We have a controller, we have an outside CPA firm. I have I mean, so
Yeah.
there's a fair investment in this. On the flip side, I don't worry about an audit. I can see in real time where I stand, and we make real decisions in real time. It's a no-brainer to me. It really is a
Yeah.
no-brainer to me to have it done.
How often do you see, just out of curiosity, clients that have good records getting audits, that have, like, a good bookkeeper and CPA and all that?
Some
But,
some,
like, percentage-wise, is it more like, who mostly gets audits?
well, all right, so this is gonna be a little
Okay.
slanted. Jaded is not the right word. It's a little skewed. In order for someone to come hire us, it's generally bad.
Yeah.
So, but we have clients that get audited and they basically have everything. And we have like some technical arguments about whether, with the IRS about something. Most of that stuff, they have good records. And where they drop the ball a lot, honestly, is valuation on non-cash charitable gifts, real estate, artwork,
Mhm.
where they say, "Oh, yeah, we got a valuation." They give me a letter from the auction house. That's not a valuation. You have to have a qualified appraisal. If it's $5,000 or more, and it has to be
Mhm.
attached to the return, and it's supposed to be timely from when the donation was made. So the IRS, it's not that they'll come up with a different number, it's denied. We have people that have had millions of dollars of deductions simply denied. Well, and then you're litigating it, and inevitably what happens, and we'll negotiate, but you're not gonna get what you really should have got.
Wow. Okay. So those are, yeah, I don't have any clients. Like, the clients that we do bookkeeping for are kind of in the 10 employees and under range. So they're not donating millions of dollars in artwork. So, because I'm like, I've never seen any of my clients get audited, but that doesn't mean they never could. And I've told them that, you know, like, have good records, have good documentation, and you're safer if it ever happened. But I haven't seen it so far.
Right. No, but many of the people that get audited do have bad records. And I think the reason they end up falling into the government radar is somebody gets audited, they've been paid a lot, there's no 1099 on file, which leads them. Hence why I wanted to talk about this topic, which now opens up to those companies that paid them that didn't file a 1099.
Yeah.
In fact, we'll usually know that may have been the trigger on the IDR, the information document request you get from the auditor. It
Mhm.
will often just say copies of all 1099s.
Wow.
And where there's only a few items listed, and that's one of them, I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
can ask the client right now, who are you paying and have you filed 1099s?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and we have clients that they will not get tax IDs or they'll get W-9s with no tax IDs, and we actually will file the 1099 and just say on there that we don't have a tax ID, but I don't think that's good for anyone, and we tell those clients, and we are actually having them do the backup withholdings, like, if you don't have a tax ID number, we're doing a backup withholding for you
Well,
because you might have to pay it, unless you can get these people's tax IDs.
well, if you think about it, when you file the 1099 with no tax ID, I'm waiting for the IRS to simply automate that, send you a bill for the 24% that you paid,
Yeah.
backup withholding bill.
And we're assuming that they will, so that's why we're setting it aside. It's crazy to me how many clients just think it's unnecessary paperwork, and I have to educate them and tell them, like, "No, listen, it's you otherwise you've got backup withholdings. You will be responsible for this person's self-employment taxes and IRS taxes, basically, is the amount that that equals to. If you are not getting a tax ID and a W-9, you will be potentially liable for these penalties per 1099 that you don't file." And also, I don't really know this, maybe you know this. How many years can the IRS go back and say that you owe the penalties and fees for on these?
Well, theoretically, it'd be 3 unless they can show fraud. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it would be 3 years at least. Now, actually, though, but that is an interesting question I don't know the answer to. Because you failed to file the 1099, which I believe counts as a return,
Mhm.
is it arguable that the statute is open for all years?
Because you failed to file. And would they consider failure to file? Do they consider that fraud or no?
I think so. I mean, think about it. Especially if you have people you're not 1099ing. This is one of those things that comes down to facts and circumstances. Are you paying them in cash? If you're paying people in cash and you're not filing 1099s, that to me would be a pure indication of you're either conspiring to commit tax fraud or certainly at least participating in it. If you're
Yeah.
paying people by check, I think I could argue for an education. They didn't know, but they're paying him in check. It ran through the bank. There's a written paper trail. Now,
Mhm.
listen, they should have filed a 1099. We all agree. High school education, kind of dumb, whatever. Didn't know, got bad advice, blah, 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 blah. I think the CI would have a harder time with that because he paid them by check. I had one where they were from a Middle East country. And back there, you didn't put your money in the bank. You could put the money in the bank today and the bank could be gone tomorrow. There's no FDIC insurance. So they
Mhm.
kept everything under the mattress. If they needed a major expense, they would go and deposit more than 10,000. And on more than one occasion, the branch manager said, "We have to report this." And they were like, "Okay." I mean, it was their money. Sure. What CI went after them. And I told the special agents this story. They called me a few weeks later. They said, we spoke to the branch manager, and that's exactly what happened." He would go and tell them, and they were like, "Yeah, report it." So they dropped because they were going after them for structuring and money laundering. I'm like, "What are you doing?" They dropped the whole thing, clearly, but the bank reported suspicious
Mhm.
activity reports, and the
'Cause
currency
they have to.
transaction. But what defeated it was the fact that they knew it was being reported and were like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead and report it."
Mhm.
Same with this. If I'm paying everyone by check, I could argue, therefore, it's only a 1099, the annual penalty. There shouldn't be any backup withholding. I'd be arguing because I didn't know. And they paid it by check. There's a paper trail. There was no overt attempt to hide. But if you're dealing in cash and not
Yeah.
reporting it, I think you have real potential, certainly on the backup withholding and the 1099, but they could also, even if criminal wouldn't take it, they could hit you for the fraud penalty,
Yeah.
75% civil fraud penalty.
Wow. We actually had, we fired this client, but we had a restaurant in California that was doing all kinds of things in cash from, the cash that they took in and not giving us good records. And after a while, I was like, no, because I can't. I know there's lots of people in California that don't have tax ID numbers. So I was just like, no, we can't work with you anymore because I don't know what you're doing and it's fishy.
Right. No, but here's the bigger thing. So you're paying these people in cash. Where'd you get the cash? Was it reported?
Right.
So when people getting paid and there's no 1099, I think that triggers an audit. But once they start getting in, where's the cash coming from? Now it's possible that everything's being reported, point of sale system, all the rest.
Yeah.
They're taking cash and paying people cash. Or at least you don't have that fraud, but you still got the employment tax fraud issue. But more often than not, that cash that goes out of the register doesn't get counted. So you've got income tax, sales tax, all right? Now you've got employment tax fraud, federal. In Connecticut, we have an income tax, so you have state, you have Department of Labor issues, workman's comp issues. I mean, I'm paying the person a couple $1,000, who cares? No, it also goes to how we get taxed, how it feels like everyone's got their hand in your pocket. There are penalties on all that stuff and potential criminal exposure. And the more that happens, if you have a lot of employees, so we have right now, only because I just did a webinar with Brad Birkenfeld, who he's been on the podcast. He was a UBS whistleblower. That's Swiss secrecy, blank, that secrecy. If you've not read his book, Maya,
I should
it,
read it.
oh my God, unbelievable
Okay.
book. Lucifer's Banker.
Okay.
He just issued the Uncensored. When he first did the original book back in 15 or 16 or whatever it was, every billionaire that was going to be named threatened to sue the publisher. And the publisher's like, look, even if we win, we can't fend off 50 lawsuits from billionaires. So they removed all these people's names. Well, they're all back in. Kevin Costner and all Louders and all that. So he just reissued it. So I had them all. We were talking about whistleblowing. I have right now, I think, 7 whistleblower cases that are, with the IRS. One of which is one of these, it's a restaurant. They had 4 people on the books, but if you go there any night, 20 people are working there.
Mhm.
It was a former bookkeeper who retired and said, Eric, can you do this? Sure, we will. So we represented her, filed. We got an alert that the client got audited. The average case for a whistleblower, average, is 10 years from when you file to if you'll get paid, if any. Why? Because the IRS has to go after them, audit them. There's a fight over it, then they got to collect. Apparently, these people just rolled over because we filed it, I think, 4 years ago. We got a letter that we're going to be getting paid. They're
Wow.
waiting to finish collecting and that we're going to get paid. So
Do
I
they have
think
to do
whoever
they
it
have to
was
close the business
gave up
down and all
and
that?
just is now in a payment plan to pay it. But that was an easy one, right? Because the auditor, and we even suggested, have the auditor just go by, count how many people are working there one day, go by lunch. CI does this. They'll be there crack of dawn and they'll photograph everybody, car, license plate going in. They'll then go and buy lunch. Chinese restaurant, Italian, doesn't matter. I've had them do everything under the sun. And they're just going to count who's working there. And they'll match up. So when we finally get involved when it goes criminal, they already know. Here are the 20 people, Eric. They work in the kitchen. They do this. This is when they show up. They've got photographs, everything. And by the way, here's the payroll with the 4 people. Where are the other 14?
Mhm.
Is your client pleading guilty or are we going to indict him?
Yeah.
Uh, it's one of those situations where it's kind of a slam dunk.
Yeah, and it's like and it's so silly too because if you just would've, obviously, like, you gotta you've got to, label them correctly, whether they should be an employee or whether they should be a contractor.
Right.
But, like, a lot of these companies, like, construction companies and stuff, it's like, and if you just would've issued the 1099, you would've been legal. regardless of how you paid them. If you just issued, like, all you had to do, it doesn't cost very much. Like, you can literally go on Tax 1099, they're $4, to file and send to your contractor. With your bookkeeper might charge you a couple of hours to get them all done, depending on how many you have. But then you're proofing yourself up against all of these penalties, all of these, this, backup withholding, plus potential audits for if anybody were to find out that you're paying people that you're not 1099ing. And I don't understand when business owners are just like, oh, it's okay. Like, what do you
Well,
mean it's okay?
I think for a lot of people, they just get caught up in the day-to-day running their business. The
Yeah,
other thing is, in some industries, if you actually did everything properly, they can't afford to do it. I
that's
mean,
true.
there is an aspect to that. I've had people come in who can't sleep at night. I wanna just so we talked them I talked to them about voluntary disclosure. The thing about voluntary disclosure, you come clean and you have to stop the criminal behavior.
Mhm.
And when they find out, they're like, "I can't hire people at going wages, workman's comp, uh, I can't do business." And I've had people decide they're gonna stay in the shadows and not do it. And
What do you do with that? Like, you have power of attorney, right? So you're not, or you have, sorry, confidentiality, so you're not reporting them, I guess, but, like,
no, I mean, listen, as an attorney, client with attorney-client privilege, unless someone's life is in danger, like, they came to me and said, "We know who the whistleblower is against our company, we're gonna be getting rid of him tonight," then I have an obligation to break attorney-client privilege. But other than that, to preserve life, nope. So,
wow.
I mean, and one of them I see, I know the business, they're not reporting their people, and apparently he's not doing a voluntary disclosure, and but the point is, and for people listening, that is a very real thing, that they literally can't compete in the industry without the undocumented workers, but that doesn't change the fact that what you're doing is illegal, you are potentially facing honestly, if that's the business, I would find a new business. If the only
Yeah,
way to run a business is to do it illegally, I wouldn't do it. And
yeah.
that's easy for me to say sitting here, but that's the reality of it. If someone came to me, if my son came to me and said, "Look, I have this great business. I think I can make a lot of money. I got to pay people off the books because I can't afford to." I'd be like, then it's not a viable business. All right. I'm sure you can improve your margins if you paid everybody cash off the books. You could cut down what you're paying them and offered no benefits. But understand that there's an old thing in, like, contract and tort law, they teach you in law school, which is profit and, risk lie in the same pocket. So, remember when McDonald's got sued that the person burned themselves with the coffee, they got, like, $400,000 and people thought it was
Mhm.
outrageous? There were memos that coffee was I don't remember the temperature, it becomes a blistering agent. I mean, it's dangerous, and McDonald's knew that. But they thought that there was a market for the coffee still being hot when people got to the office. Well, that's
Mhm.
fine. If you're gonna do that, and this is why the 400 grand, if you're gonna do that and put everybody at risk so you can make more sales, more profit, you bear the risk of what happens when people get burned. And how do you punish a company like McDonald's? That's huge. So, and by the way, if you saw the pictures, remember the coffee, they put it in their lap, the lid came off, it spilled, so a blistering agent hit this woman's crotch effectively inside of her thighs, and it's a blistering agent, and the pictures were pretty horrible. But that's why. I mean, so here, if you're gonna take the risk of, "I can make more money, make this profitable, but I'm gonna break the law to do it," and you are breaking the law, cash off the books, not 1099ing the rest. I hope you've just factored in the risk.
Yeah.
The
Is the
least of
okay, I
it
hope you have a good insurance and good savings account. Well, insurance doesn't cover fraud, so I hope you have a savings account for if you get sued. Yeah, which you probably don't because you're trying to run.
well,
I
and
know, and it sucks because there are industries, like the restaurant industry seems to be one of those, and the construction industry seems to be one of those where they tell you that they don't make profit unless they cut corners, and when they say cut corners, you're like, some of this is committing fraud.
right.
But it's awful, but yeah, if you can't do it legally, I agree with you. You're gonna have to get into a different industry.
Basically the business is not viable. The business model isn't viable, and you got to move on. But
Yeah.
no, this is it's great. It's the Tech Shop. It's always good to do the 1099 overview this time of year.
Yeah.
And everyone remember, it's only a few days left by the time this posts. 31st is very real. Get on this, get your 1099s. By the way, my suggestion, let's say you listen to this. I blew the 31st, Eric. I got these 5, 7. Get them done, get them filed. I have to tell you, even
Mhm.
where people have filed up until April, I've not seen them come back with penalties. I think the
Yeah.
goal is just to get it filed. And you know what? Honestly, if you got the penalties, and we could argue, we thought the LLC was an S corp, we found out it wasn't. You may have a chance of even getting out of those, but the penalties would be small. The biggest thing is get them filed, right? Preferably by the 31st, but if it's over that, get them filed.
Yeah, because the biggest penalties are the intentional disregard, where, like you said, then they could notice something, then they could go back at least 3 years, audit you, all this stuff,
Backup
and the
withholding,
backup withholdings.
right? Listen, if you 1099 even late, I think you're going to avoid the backup withholding.
Yeah,
Problem you've got is if you don't have ID numbers and this is long delayed, I don't think there's going to be a lot of sympathy, at least from the auditors that I've dealt with.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right. And Maya, by the
I
for people that need you, like me,
yeah.
how do we get in touch with you?
Okay, so you can email me, maya@solvencynow.com. You can go to my website, solvencynow.com.
You're easy to find. You're on
I'm
social
easy to
media. You're
find.
putting out all kinds of helpful content. And I'm going to plug here because I'm not only a fan, I'm also a client, literally.
Yeah. And
No,
you give me such good advice, Whenever I have questions about tax things that I don't know or that are complicated, you're always who I go to. I try to go to your conferences. I try to watch your things because I learn so much from you. So, like, I've got a pretty good grounding in all of the things that we do, but I learn so much from you.
well, thank you. I appreciate it. And anyone, get your not 1099s done. If you need help, bookkeeping, any of this stuff, cleanup work, Maya is your gal. And thanks for listening in, Maya. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. I'll see you next week on the podcast.